Okay, does anybody remember what, okay, let's think about the teacher reflection we did for 501, teacher reflections from Fridays. Does anyone remember what the last question on those has been?
Rate your confidence or something?
5, 1 to 5, one very low confidence, 5 very low confidence. We don't have to share what our rating was, but remember what your rating was. Anybody rating a 5? Really? Cool. Anybody relating, or reporting a little bit less than 5? 4.
That's pretty less.
Anybody less than 2, maybe? Okay, anyway. So, to get this therapy session on the road, we're going to talk about anxiety. Since we're talking about bullying, it's now somewhat appropriate to talk about anxiety. So, I want you to think about, and I've given out post-it notes, I want you to think about some specific things you're going to be anxious about if you had to go to JCPS tomorrow, if they had a professional development day and the building exploded and suddenly they needed teachers. Go. Yeah, there's about 3 ideas, one for just post-it note. Really think about what makes them anxious. It comes too naturally. Writing down post-it answers to that one. You have to finish in 20 seconds. Do you feel anxious? I'm sorry. Good. You got one. It was supposed to be a B or a V. I'm worried about how I was going to get all my materials together. Not knowing the rest of the faculty, okay. Not having any background on students, don't know the school policy, keeping a pleasant presence, truly inspiring the students. Or getting materials for lessons, there we go. Classroom management, controlling bullies, that's topical. Being overwhelmed. What sort of ways are you guys worried about being overwhelmed? By what different things?
Administration. A lot of pressure from them.
Okay.
Ensuring they've covered the core standards every day, the core content.
Yeah, and just going into a new job in general, you've got so much, we know our content, but the process and, like you said, the policies. And just taking it all in at first. You know, over time, we'll get used to it, but right up front.
So worried about the unknown, worried about our performance. Okay, I've got a few I've added a few in here. And this will be very reminiscent of something. I've drawn a line down the middle. I'd like you guys to work together to sort them. Grab a few.
How about we do?
One's I wrote it also.
Yeah.
How about we do the student?
Other
Schools, actually, yeah, so student. Students and teachers.
Yeah, students, teachers. Or other.
Monkeys.
Yeah.
Well, policies. Don't, wear hats or advertising, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just not.
You got it?
Please don't.
You're gonna go see the boys.
Are we good?
See
If I have that. We can return to our seats. So, what were the two categories?
Students.
Student related and then teacher slash other.
On which sides was
Teacher.
teacher? Cool, so for teacher related ones, you have things like colleagues, dealing with lots of work, what's it like? Okay, presence. So what about the ones I added? Anyone think about those? You recognize my handwriting? Will I be able to function at 6 a.m.?
We put that with teacher.
Yeah, no, I see that, I just saying, do you think that's a valid thing to be anxious about?
Well, not already doing that here.
Yeah.
I was,
Next thing, we're sleeping late.
I said start till what, like 7 o'clock or so, so that she got a little time to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Other thing I think we down there was like being on time, as far as like making sure that you're in some kind of way about traffic, like making sure
Right.
you're leaving only like an hour and a half before class starts. Make sure the traffic's down.
See if you can get first period planning.
So first day of class is you chose as students, which I thought was interesting. I always think that as a preparation thing, as a teacher, I need to be prepared for the first day of class, but you put it as a student concern. I guess you're saying that preparation is for the students. Okay. Just check out on that. Okay, so anybody notice who I was blatantly ripping off of this engagement activity? Yeah. Think there might have been a reason for that?
You talk about motivation.
Strategy.
Yes! So, you may have noticed that there were sort of these student, what categories did we split it into last time we were working with Kate? Same idea, the student teacher. So, you four, get your piece of paper for you. You four. You guys, talk about ways that anxiety can increase motivation. Get down some ideas. So, talk about ways that anxiety can decrease motivation.
Anxiety. Decrease.
Personally.
Think about the teachers and the students.
Helps your mind with
I can go to sleep if you need to finish it.
Jefferson.
I know we met them that way.
I would say,
As far as being prepared for class, you can do so much that you kind of overwhelm and you lose track of your whole entire thought process because you're doing so much to try and prepare yourself for the classroom. I know.
We guys are anxious about it.
Yeah, and you're trying to do so much to make the experience, you're trying to make a learning environment and you just do so much in the classroom that you completely overwhelm yourself and get completely hands on.
I mean, that's.
Get all these ideas
I was
and
there for
things
years,
and just can't do it.
practice a lot.
I'd say along those lines. Never mind, I'll do it again.
Oh, yeah, what's the name of your, along those lines, yeah, your perfections. And you just want to give up. Yeah, because it's never gonna be, what things, or it should, so it's, as long as
We've got great motivation, we're just trying to think of some other stuff.
I don't know, that's almost like giving up, just.
This is really, if this was my notes, I would have to rewrite the sheet.
Oh, really? Just want to give up, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
You want something?
That was
So,
nice.
you guys got a few things?
Yeah.
Well, I guess anxiety would be genuinely gonna help too.
What else could you
Because if I'm anxious about
See,
something, I'm more apt
expectations.
to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, maybe like, as far as like student expectations in the classroom, if they don't conform to the level that you think they should be. You can help on teaching,
Yeah, the student.
if they,
Expectations for the student.
yeah, or, yeah.
Or just you lower your, you just lower expectations.
Wrap up the discussion.
Yeah, but I think that's a big deal, say the students don't do well, and
You guys are on this
work so hard to teach them to do it.
Who's talking about this?
What's that? Let's talk about it.
Earlier this week.
Got it. Yeah, you guys ready? Okay, good. Let us discuss. So, would you like to share your ideas?
Sure. We said ways that it can increase your anxiety, can increase motivation. Anxiety can give you adrenaline to be motivated to get more stuff done, as long as it's not a completely overwhelming sense of
So, keep
anxiety.
you awake.
It can help you remember what you need to do. Students may be motivated to put in more effort or study time if they're anxious about how they're going to do, or seek out help from a more knowledgeable other.
You guys? How can anxiety hurt us?
It makes you want to give up if, I don't know, if you get overwhelmed, I guess, or you think you can't do it, you get that anxiety, and you just want to basically quit, which is, I mean, definitely the ultimate increase in motivation right there, so.
Okay. So I'm hearing anxiety makes you want to try harder and anxiety makes you want to quit. So what's the difference between the two?
Depends on what,
The
you
amount?
know, yeah, and also if it's positive or negative anxiety. You should be excited, but you could be anxious for something. That's a positive type or a healthy type of anxiety. But if you have a fear of, being able to, or of failing,
Yeah, fear of failing versus fear of success.
Okay. Excitement versus fear, like this. Okay. So think of a specific example of a student who is anxious about something that covers the points that you've talked about in your groups. Write down, in your groups, write down that example, think about how that's affecting their learning. Yeah, feel free to use examples from this week. It is.
Well, it's not-
Yeah, I just overwhelming.
Give me that.
Maybe you're giving the students too much projects, like a project, your work assignment,
Or just core planning.
yeah. Yeah.
thumbs up when you guys have the.
Like just sitting around moving.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a really good one.
Oh, yes, we're done.
Walking in class and test. I'm just surprised.
A surprise.
I'm surprised.
No, but on the first day.
One, two examples, and then focus on how it relates to learning.
Well, think about when the kids are an example would be the first day you walk in class. You have to assess from the student's knowledge.
Pre-test.
Yeah.
Maybe that's pretty overwhelming.
And especially if they don't know it, because, yeah, I mean, I loaded this, I don't know this stuff. And I'm like,
I mean, that's what quit. Well, Brandon, you probably should just quit.
that's good.
Or they got anxiety related to the students or the teacher. Yes, it don't. Yeah, just good.
For people like math, but.
Now everyone, let's share our feelings. So, what was your all's example? Or a couple examples?
Well, one was basically like a pre-test that's not, just to get an understanding where the students are at, but not, if you don't let the students know that this does not count towards a grade, this is, they can be overwhelmed really quickly and therefore, my personal, give up or, definitely decreases their motivation for the class.
A lot of stress on your mind.
Okay. So, the specific example was a student
Feeling overwhelmed.
feeling overwhelmed in what situation? Like, what did the teacher do? Or what-
Having a test,
Okay.
a pre-test that they were unaware of its value, of course,
Or grade. Okay. Katie, how does that covers you? Okay, you kind of discussed how it covers your points earlier that you made. How does that affect the learning of the student? Taylor?
oh, how does it affect one? Well, you want to shut off, things and unmotivated to learn anything, to listen, to pay attention.
Okay. Katie, what was your all's example?
We said testing, like final tests, final projects, big projects that are your overall grade, even like standardized testing like the ACT or GRE or something like that.
Adrian, how did it cover your points earlier?
Because,
How did it
Well-
relate to good anxiety?
well, for example, you're motivated to try harder or study harder for your final exam or a lot more time to work on your final projects. Yeah.
Okay. John, how does that affect the overall learning of the student?
Adrian mentioned, encourages you to spend more time on your projects and, as a result, it helps the student become self-regulating, their time management skills and everything. They realize the importance of, what it is they need to do when they need to get it accomplished.
Keep each other's examples in mind. And swap. Okay. So similar to the motivation talk, one of the things we talked about was attribution. So the belief about the cause of performance. Do you remember sort of 3 categories that we talked about with attribution, different categories ways we divvy up our attribution? Control. Katie, you got one? That is, yeah, we can attribute something to luck, but with regards to control, how else will the student view
They're in control or
the
out
cause
of
of
control.
performance? In control or out of control? Is there another category, Josh?
As far as like categories for student anxiety?
Sure. Brandon, you want to throw one out?
I don't remember the actual
Okay,
terminology.
well, give me the idea.
Well, obviously, control can give the attribution, so student has kind of control this. I think also one is.
How did you group it on the sheet? Think about that. Think about the ways you were thinking about.
If it's internal or external,
It's internal or external. Good. That would be called
locus.
locus. And I'll go ahead and
There we go.
so, if you think about some of these, will I be able to function at 6 a.m.? Stability? Is it something that you can change? Might depend. You might think that it's early in the morning and I'm going to be tired no matter what, so you might think that. And control. But yeah, stability, it actually can change. It's a fact that it can change. And then control, can you control it?
How about our energy?
We were talking about a lot of conflicts with the, will I get punished if my students fail? How do I deal with the administration? Locus. External. Is that something that you have control over?
Don't let your students fail, very well.
To an extent.
Yeah, I mean,
Before the evaluation, you have control over it. But after it's said and done, you don't have really control over the administration.
Okay. So you gave each other examples of situations where you felt sort of this productive anxiety or this negative anxiety. Think about the other group's example and try to classify it. How did the student feel about the cause of the anxiety, the problems the student was facing?
What was your guys' example?
about giving a pretest without saying that's, just a pretest, the student gets overwhelmed and quits or is not motivated anymore.
Want to discuss with your groups?
Very good.
There's a digest test.
Yeah. It depends on like how prepared you are. Like if you didn't know your pretest, like if you did, you could say, oh yeah, actually I do know this. I'm not sure some of that stuff, because you could change it, but like you might external sources.
So I was not here, just presenting a pretest.
Well, if it's a you talk to students in the class,
Maybe.
if it was something that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Just because you take ECT doesn't mean that you care. But the GRE, if you're paying $160 to take it, it was expensive, it was like over $100.
What can we do to change on the exam?
No,
So there's, I would say there's a level, what can we do about anxiety? What you saying? Study, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Study.
it's way more proactive.
Would that reduce the anxiety of the student?
Yeah, because if you're doing your results stuff.
One hour.
You know it versus you just trying to.
Regroup a little bit here.
Use last second.
So, did you all classify it in these three ways? What did you come up with? Do you think there's a general, way the student might perceive it, for example?
We thought there would be like an external locus, because they don't really have it, they can't control if they do it or not, so, and it's gonna reflect.
They're panicking, right?
Yeah.
External locus?
Yeah.
Was it something that could change or might not be something that could change?
It can change.
That one depended a little bit more. Do they feel like they have control?
Absolutely not.
You guys? The positive anxiety?
Well, we said it was internal because it's the internal motivation you study for, the test, ACT, or whatever, GRE, whatever test it is. So it's kind of an internal locus, I don't know what it is.
Because you can change your grade by how much you study.
But if it's positive, like if you're going to study, you could change it, I guess. You obviously, but I guess not care as much. It would lower it, but you wouldn't want to do that, but it's a way to change control.
Yeah.
But I will say, they could also almost turn into negative anxiety, because you could be worried the night before, and not going to sleep, or cramped in the night before.
So what I'm hearing in general is that when you've got a sort of negative situation, The student feels out of control. The student feels that it's external a lot of times. When you got a more positive correlation between motivation and anxiety, the student feels that it's more of an internal issue, feels in control of it. So, we're going to talk as a group now. What about tomorrow's teach? How are you guys feeling about that?
Pretty
Got any anxieties?
Pretty excited.
Excited to get the peer teach done so we can see how it's gonna go.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a little anxious. We're not sure if everything's going to work.
Oh, yeah.
But that would,
What are some specific things that the GSKyTeach program has been doing to create this positive, week one, would you have been as positively anxious about this? So what if,
I know, I was nervous as heck.
They've given us positive feedback. What I've done as far as our teaching.
only positive feedback?
Well, they haven't given negative, but if you only gave negative, then I think we'd be more anxious if we get negative.
And it was constructive,
Yeah.
Constructive feedback.
so you didn't feel like you were terrible. Okay.
Also, the first week they gave us a lot of, like they did the entire lesson for us to try and reduce our initial anxiety in the hopes that when we got to the book coming down,
Okay, so they use sort of a scaffolding method to build up.
Also, a big thing also that I think is the not knowing the students at first, and then getting to know them eventually. It's not something that the teachers have done exactly, but it has, I think, helped. And they've talked and analyzed or given us ways to analyze the students that help us further, understand where they're at to help.
What message have they been sending as far as how we do? What do they care about?
Getting better,
Getting better?
not grades necessarily, but, getting better, improving our skills.
Deep understanding of the concepts.
Deep conceptual understanding of that.
So if the kids hate it, what sort of, it was a flop. How did they respond to the math lesson being a flop? Let's say.
Math lesson was a flop. So it turned fine.
Well, suppose that a math lesson was a flop.
It was 45 minutes in the life of all of us, and in the big scheme of things, even if it was a flop, what can we learn from that? How can we make it better? It's not the end of the world.
Okay. So is it the performance that's really what they're trying to get
It's
at?
that process, it probably is it.
So we're in process-oriented mastery goals. So your students, what are your students going to be worried about? What are their two big things? Let's think about two big things students get anxious over.
Grades,
Tests, grades, assessments.
who's that cute girl like me?
So,
You're cute.
Spiders, death, and what's the third one?
Taxes.
Horrifying things. Yeah. How about public speaking?
Yeah.
How about speaking and giving presentations?
Yeah.
So, what can we do to actually help our students with their anxieties?
Have them practice a lot. Like do small, come up to the front of the class and talk for a minute about what your group found or what you found within an activity that you do in class. Just get them comfortable with being in front of everyone.
You could do the scaffolding technique where you work in larger groups and then make the groups smaller if you have a big presentation individually do.
Yeah, along those lines of practicing, having them talk about non-school related items, things that they're passionate about, things they want to talk about.
there was a test, when you give them a test you gave before. Something like that.
Repeated.
Yeah, or do something where they can practice it. It's good. things they need to do.
Feedback.
Yeah.
So give them multiple tests.
Yeah, some way to reduce their anxiety when they actually walk into the classroom and start taking it, because they've seen the format.
Do you want to throw them? Do you want to throw them an easy test early?
I mean, I would throw them something that wouldn't cause them, when they walk in, just the overall format of the test, so when they walk in there, they weren't completely lost.
Format.
Yeah.
So make the format clear. Are pop quizzes a good idea?
I mean, it
Yes,
can
they
be.
know, depends on the purpose.
Yeah.
Well, and the reason I say that is, if it's just, you know, okay, everybody pull out a pencil and a piece of paper, we're gonna do a quiz to, you know, basically punish the class or whatever for acting up, then no, it's not a good idea. If it's near the end of a lesson and you want to really see if the kids are getting the concepts, you know, then yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Is that actually a quiz then?
Well, yeah, because you're quizzing them over what they've done, but the difference is they have a different perception of why it's being done and the attitude going into it is different because they have been preparing in class. Whereas if you just pop up a pop quiz, you know, because you're upset with the class, then they don't know.
So they need to know, what you're saying is they need to know why you're doing it. They need to maybe see it coming
Right.
to a certain extent. So generally that kind of pop quizzes, especially the word pop there so much. But, you know, if they understand why they're being assessed, if they, you know the material, read the material, what do we talk about as far as preparing students for tests, for assessments? In those terms,
There's objectives that you're
Learning objectives, yeah. And the key word there might be alignment.
Yeah.
About,
Okay.
make sure that you're actually.
I have a quick question. So are you, I just want to clarify. Are you saying that pop quizzes are a bad idea?
I think generally, as far as anxiety concerns, I think pop quizzes are not a good idea because you're literally surprising them with something, and if you're trying to build an environment where the student understands what's going on, knows they're not going to blank, you're worried about them having that sudden cognitive overload of their mind going blank and not being able to process on a test, for example, then you want them in control of their situation to a certain extent. So just to walk through these as sort of a summation of everything we're talking about. So what can you do from day one?
Create a comfortable environment.
Comfortable environment.
And the atmosphere in the room, students being able to communicate freely
Okay, focusing on
within subject matter.
within subject matter.
Put posters in the room.
Yeah, part of creating a positive environment, yes.
I mean, them know each other and want to know each other as well.
Get around each other. Okay. What's important on day one?
Day one, well, just addressing what you expect of the students.
Expectations,
Structure.
absolutely.
The order to follow, maybe a rubric or so.
Goals, ideas, rubrics, yes, we love talking about rubrics. So, it's Monday, they've got a test on Friday, what are you telling them to do to prepare for the test?
I'm definitely, personally, I would like to give them either a study guide or give them a study guide on Monday, maybe on Tuesday, go over the study guide as a class, but have them work on it Monday night as homework to get them started to think about it. But definitely just introduce them, generally the test and help kind of give them a little help.
Give them an idea of what the material's gonna be,
Mhm.
how else do you prepare them to succeed on the test?
Maybe tell them to look over a little bit each night instead of waiting the night before to try to study for everything.
Study strategies, break it up, study a bit at a time, don't study right before you get into the test. Get good sleep, eat breakfast maybe, So during the test or presentations, what can you do?
Give them candy. Or, well, I mean, not like, but,
Stop. It wasn't me that time.
Yeah.
I think he thought the question was what, not.
One of the things that someone might do that might affect the anxiety of students while they're working on an exam.
that just made me nervous when you all maybe walk around.
Oh.
Their shoulder.
I thought I was doing something wrong, or,
Yeah. So, I thought I was supposed to have something out on my desk.
So what are you doing while they're taking an exam?
Yeah.
What are you doing at the beginning of the period when they're taking an exam?
watching the students, make sure they don't cheat.
Make sure that they understand the directions.
The directions. Maybe go over the instructions on the exam. Absolutely.
So I like whenever teachers actually went over the test with the class. So while they're taking the test, you're also taking the test to make sure when you're going through, if it's a math test especially, or physics, all the numbers work, there's no typos or anything.
Or grade some homework, bring in a book, do something, but be sitting down doing something so that you're not glaring at them, and you're not sitting there acting anxious yourself. They'll pick up on that. But be aware, obviously, you don't want cheating or anything, so, but do something where you can be aware of them, but also look like you're busy.
Making sure that, the amount of problems that you give, they're not, the class as a whole is not rushed to finish it. That they have enough time to complete it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you're not walking around, I understand the point. I'm just wondering, I've had students, if I wasn't walking around checking to see what they're doing, they would look at the other student's exam because they feel like I wasn't paying attention to what they're doing. How can you confront that? You know what I mean?
So for their seats, when they can't do it.
That's one classroom.
It's a problem. Eventually, you might have to do what you have to do, but just think about what effect that's going to have on you.
You can vary the tests or the
Yes,
exams.
that's true.
Give alternating exams so that nobody has this, well, you have different
Different rows.
versions. That's one way of doing it, so that you're still doing what Matthew's talking about, but accomplishing what you're hoping to accomplish.
And afterward, okay, we'll be done.
Sorry.
No, you're right. And